that's cool. All right, so we do have a call right now.
Nice. Very
It's
cool.
Yeah,
How are
it
you?
looks like it's a theist who's from Canada.
Ooh,
Archon, do I have that right? Archon, he, him, and who says homeschooling can be good. It depends on the curriculum and goals. Okay, I think
okay.
we're starting on pretty good footing. How
Yeah.
you doing,
Hi.
Archon?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
Great too. Thank you for calling. How's it going?
Excellent.
What did you have in mind today for the call?
Well, I really like the conversation that you guys were having based on education. I wanted to jump on in and have a little bit of that discussion as a theist in order to, see if we align or not.
Cool.
So, when it comes to education, and definitely when it comes to homeschooling, I think that it matters, just like how it's stated, or how it was quoted, what I stated, is that it matters how and what the parent is doing with their child, because a family member of mine actually was homeschooled and actually got to university because of their homeschooling and everything like that, because of the curriculum that their parents and rigorous curriculum that their parents put them through. So towards a certain extent, I think that if the curriculum is correct, and if the curriculum is based on what schools are teaching their children, then I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah, I agree, and that's kind of what Brently was saying earlier on in the show, that was his concern, right? That if you have, let's say, two neighbors, right, like myself, and then right next door, and they're using no curriculum and they're just like winging it, and I'm using a state accredited curriculum, then we're gonna have completely different experiences in the same state with the same rules set by the state. So, like, how do we get to a point where both of our children can have the same level of education but still do it at home?
Right. I think that's the problem, right? Because every parent is different, and a lot of parents don't want to follow the curriculum that is actually given. But if you have certain parents that do, so I think what needs to happen is that there needs to be more accountability that is kind of put on to the parents, because without accountability they're able to go off script and then teach them whatever they want towards a certain extent, or half-ass it towards a certain extent, right? So you need somebody, kind of like an individual who comes in to see how the parent is doing within the curriculum that has been sent home, let's just say, and see if they are quote unquote, I don't want to say qualified, because what does that mean, qualified? But see if they're
Right.
doing it correctly, or if they need to be kind of like held up, right? They need to be kind of looked and examined themselves in order to see if they're able to do this type of education to begin with.
Yeah, because otherwise you can just remove your child's ability to succeed in life. If you do a bad job, and let's be real, a lot of like high school and stuff is hard. That's why like each class has like like a different teacher and everything that like specializes in a particular subject, that's a lot for parents to do. And if they can do it, cool, but we need some kind of standard, right? Like some kind of way that somebody can show up and be like, let me make sure that your kids aren't like 10 or 12 years old and they can't read, because that happens there. That happens actually quite a bit, especially in like more rural states where they have um, a lot of religious people that have basically made it so that you don't have to put your kids in school, and then stuff like that happens. But yeah, what do you think about that?
Well, I do completely agree with you on that aspect. Like, I can understand if a theistic individual wants to teach their children, about some sort of aspect about God, but questioningly, I believe is the word I'm trying to say. But towards the extent
We
of
get
letting
you.
your children make
That
that
works.
Like, not
Skeptically.
force it, but to let them understand it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
at the same exact time, I would say that if you're only literally teaching about God and not about anything else, then you're actually making your child's position even worse within any type of environment that they go into once they're
So,
done.
so you
That's
don't
Unless
think
true.
they're going to be a pastor or whatever the situation is, then okay, maybe. But besides that,
do you think so you don't think they should teach like religion as some kind of like in science class and stuff? For instance, I was taught that there were dinosaurs on Noah's Ark in science class.
well, right there, I find that the credibility of the teacher just goes right out the window. When
Okay,
literally,
Okay,
okay.
good.
I wasn't sure if you were gonna. Well, there were dinosaurs. Otherwise, that part in Daniel doesn't make any sense where he sees the dinosaur playing in the water because it would have
I'm
died
not that good to see
in the flood.
it.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
I think something that the state could do to assist homeschool parents is that sometimes homeschooling can be really expensive. If you want to have a good curriculum, you have to pay a lot of money for it. Whereas if you send your kid to school, then it's free, right? And so providing parents, homeschooling parents, with an appropriate curriculum that is state accredited would be a great start, right? So that all the parents have that opportunity to give their children that education. And then maybe something like, I know a lot of homeschool parents don't want the government or the local, schools and stuff involved in their education and all that stuff, but like a little bit of something will help more. Something like once a semester, like let the kids learn throughout the semester, however at whatever pace they can or want, right? But then at the end of a semester, have them take a test at the local school and see if they are at level or where. And it doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, we're going to do something to you like as a punishment, but rather like, oh, hey, this is what you can work on to improve for the next test. So now hey, you're not doing very good at math or whatever, and then you can do better for the next one. And I don't know, just some throwing some ideas out.
I
No, but I
agree.
mean, those are
Mhm.
great ideas. Like, those are some foundational ideas right there that I actually agree with. Like, you can't just, first off, you need to hire a great staff in and of itself at the school. So then, after none of this pseudoscience, nonsensical foolery comes through. And then later on, what I would say is that you kind of have that periphery where it comes to your or the parents that are homeschooling the children. So then when they do come to the school, they're not being, lambasted with no, 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 there was actually dinosaurs on Noah's Ark. I'm like, no.
Right. Yeah.
You
What
know,
about evolution? Like.
sorry, go ahead. Go
No,
ahead. I
I'm sorry. I
interrupted.
didn't realize I was interrupting you. My bad, man. No, I was just going to ask if they do you think they should teach evolution at school, or do you think that's like one of those areas where we're like, well, religious people don't.
No, no, no. Evolution is foundational. Like,
Okay, all
for
right, that's
me,
good.
I
Okay,
think are definitely when it comes to the the God that I believe in and everything, I think that evolution is the very thing that makes it work. Like, you cannot not have evolution and then say, okay, something just mysteriously appeared. Like, no, you have to have the evolutionary process, and that's where my deity works its work, is through the evolutionary process.
Hmm,
okay,
interesting. Are
I
you a
see.
Christian or no?
No, I'm not a Christian.
Oh, okay.
I'm a sun
Interesting.
worshiper.
A what?
A sun worshiper.
A sun worshiper.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Actually, never heard of that. But that's it. Would
Makes
you
more
mind
sense for
sharing
Christianity.
what that means? Yeah,
Yeah.
no, sorry.
That
I'm
means,
new to that one.
no worries, no worries. It means that we worship the sun. And it's like the big fiery gas ball, hydrogen ball in the sky that's giving us light and has brought forth life and everything like that. That is the thing that we worship.
Okay.
It's actually
I
really
I
common.
could get behind that. I could get behind that. All
Yeah.
right.
Or it was really common, right? Like historically, it was a pretty popular religious belief to worship the sun, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
I
there
think
was a
so.
reason for it, because of the crops that grew from it. And it all started in Egypt and Samaria, and then slowly but surely started to expand through peripheries into Hellas and into Rome and into all these other periods on the island of Crete and so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
there's a lot, and let alone even, which a lot of people wouldn't state, but I will, because the God of the Bible is the rendition of Aten in and of itself, which is the sun god that Akhenaten believed in. And once Akhenaten's temples were starting to get destroyed and everything like that, once he was dead, they fled. And henceforth, there was not like the exodus that you would think, but there was an exodus of Atenists in different directions. And in certain areas, they went into what we will now call "quote unquote" Israel, or Judea and Israel.
Wow, that's interesting.
Uh, I learned something today. That's pretty cool. Thanks for sharing. Like I'm gonna have to look more into that. Yeah, I've never heard of it. I mean, I'm not gonna say like I'm gonna become a saint worshiper, but like it's a
It
it's definitely
exists.
something I've never
No,
heard of, and it makes a lot more sense than the God of the Bible for sure.
Does the sun
indeed,
have
indeed. And literally, the God of the Bible was also, if you look at Sol Invictus, for instance, a lot of the similarities, even on Jesus, like when Jesus was born, his resurrection, everything like that, are the same exact dates as Sol Invictus, which is literally the invincible sun,
huh.
or the unconquerable sun, I should say.
So does
So
does he have
all
agency?
of
It
these
does it's
religions that we're looking at are all influenced by the sun. We literally, Judeo-Christian and Islam, I would also say too, because it was influenced by Zoroastrian, and Zoroastrian religions were influenced by the sun as well. So they all permeate from the sun itself.
right. Does it think? Does the sun like decide stuff and everything, or do you just worship stuff that does that you know what I mean? Like is it like a thinking being that can like decide get stuff and hear prayers and stuff?
Ooh, now that is a complex story. Like we could definitely get into it. I don't mind.
Sure.
I'm just curious. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have any other colors right now, so we have the time.
Of course, of course. So we do believe that the sun is a thinking being in and of itself. Yes. Um, just because of literally because the way that we look at things is based on consciousness. People say that consciousness is an emergent property, which it is. It is an emergent property, but it needs to emerge from somewhere. There needs to be a life giver in and of itself, and the sun is that life giver. And through the interactions of the sun and its effects on the earth, obviously, it allowed us slowly but surely to gain that aspect of consciousness.
So it did it on purpose?
Well, if you're good, I wouldn't say it did it on purpose, but what I would say is that it manipulates you toward, and manipulate, I know sounds like a really bad word. It doesn't have the same
Influence?
connotation. It's kind of like with evolution. Evolution is based on the manipulation of the environment on a being in and of itself. And through deep time, what we have is this being slowly but surely through speciation diverging into different species and everything towards that extent. But it takes so long, and it also takes the environment and extinction to come through in order to do
Yeah.
these very drastic changes between species. And that's why there's such a large gap between chimpanzees and human beings, or literally between anything that we look at and human beings in and of itself.
Okay. What
Hmm.
are the sort of indications of the sun having, you're saying the sun has consciousness, correct? Like is there something we can we've been able to measure or see, or how do we understand that it has consciousness?
Okay, so the reason why, and definitely when we're looking at it in general, we see that, and it starts off extremely small, right? Because consciousness is functional. It's a functionalist type of prospect. It's not just the brain. It's multiple aspects of the brain working together as one entity in order to create that aspect of consciousness. Well, consciousness is not just the brain, it's the mechanics within the brain itself. The brain is an extremely, complex mechanism. But just like when we look at the sun itself is also an extremely complex mechanism. So, and how we slowly got to that point is that there's this thing called dry plasma dust. Now, what happens is with this dry plasma dust is that slowly but surely over time, it actually starts to amalgamate together on its own. On its own, and what it does is that it can, what certain scientists have said is that it can also create a double helix. And if it's left out into the vacuum of space and everything like that, or in a vacuum, what there seems to be a tendency is that it starts becoming more complex and more and more and more complex the longer that it's within an area. So obviously, if we're talking about millions or billions of years, this complexity can get way more, you know, how can I say it? I don't want to say. I guess you could say lifelike towards a certain extent, and slowly but surely, with this dry plasma dust in and of itself, what it creates is I forget what they're called. I think they're called plasmards.
Mm.
Plasmards, I believe. And now, what these things are is kind of like, ball lightning and everything like that. So they're extremely rare on Earth, but we can actually see them, and there has been certain times where they've been, recorded towards a certain extent. And what happens is that if these plasmards or plasards or whatever the hell they're called come together, they can grow. They can don't want to say devour, but they can fuse together. Now, in the vacuum of space, where this also happens during the duration of, billions of years, what we see is that it slowly starts to culminate together through gravity in order to create a more complex structure, a protostar in and of
Mm.
itself. And then once you start seeing that protostar start to come together, what we finally see is kind of like what we see with Sol, for instance, or the sun. So from these complex mechanisms of dry plasma dust, which culminate together on their own and create complex structures on their own, like literally inorganic living beings towards a certain extent, even though that people like to pull back from it because it kind of makes it seem like only organic beings can be living, not inorganic in and of itself. But these things are kind of breaking the scale at the moment about, okay, what is happening over here? So that's how, if we really look at it, and if we see that just these minute plasma dust or crystalline plasma dust
Yeah.
is able to do
Plasma
something
crystals. Is
and
that
now create these structures.
But so, okay, this is a little bit beyond my understanding, right? But my general idea of what you explained is that, to summarize it for maybe the people in the chat that may not grasp everything that was said, what
Yeah.
convinced you that the sun has a conscience is the complexity of the universe, or our galaxy
No, not the
specifically.
complexity of the universe, because for us, we see the universe as chaos. And that's why where so many people would say, oh, you are a, uh, not, I think it's called a panpsychist. You're a panpsychist, meaning that the universe has consciousness and everything like that, and
Right.
or
Yeah.
even like atoms
Mm-hmm.
have consciousness, and you amalgamate those atoms together, and the more you have these workings come together, the more that a thing could have a potential amount of consciousness to it, or towards a certain extent, or whatever. But we as sun worshippers don't agree with that. Within the chaos of the universe, with how fast the universe is spreading apart or expanding, we we think that it's impossible for the universe itself to have consciousness because of how fast it's expanding. But because we have these islands or these great local beacons of consciousness, sort of like Sol, for instance, or the sun, and let alone Sagittarius A, which is the massive stabilizer which allows consciousness to come to be. Because you need stability to have consciousness. You can't necessarily have too much chaos or else nothing can come to fruition. You need to
Well,
have a stabilizer.
if so, first of all, real quick, like how are we defining consciousness? Because
I was
I
gonna
feel
ask
like that's
exactly that question
I feel like we need to
because I
to
don't think we're on the same definition
Absolutely,
right here.
absolutely. Well,
yeah.
towards a certain extent, people could say to be aware. Another time, and if we want to get philosophical, it's the more inwardness of looking inside oneself and realizing the I of a particular thing.
Okay.
So it kind of the sort of thing is I think, therefore I am, which is the
Mm-hmm.
fundamental, which a lot of people state for consciousness, because consciousness is an inward look that you're
Right.
looking within, and through your inward look, you're able to then correlate your outward existence, how you interact with or your
Oh,
awareness with the outside world.
Right.
okay.
So, okay,
So I
so
would
almost
say,
like a combination of self-awareness and reflection, like the ability to
Yeah.
consciously think about one's own thoughts and actions, and realizing one's own existence or distinct identity. Like those
Okay.
two
you know
together?
what? That was beautifully fucking said. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's how I would define it as well. But I don't
Yeah.
see how
Yeah.
that could apply
Same.
to the
Same.
sun.
But so my question is this. Yeah. I'm trying to think about how we want to apply this to the sun, also in the same sense of considering the sun as the creator of life on Earth, right? Of humans. Yeah, sure, evolution and all that. But like, how how did are you saying that the sun had consciousness from the beginning, and one day was like, hey, I would like to have some type of conscious company in this empty void, and so he or she created
It's she.
some sort of
It's
life.
gotta be she, right?
Yeah.
I would think.
Oh, it's an it. It has no gender.
Hey, come
It
on now.
is what
It's
it is.
listening
They.
to us,
Okay.
man. It can hear you right now.
Well, because that's the thing. The sun has been associated with female back in the past, and the sun has been associated with the male back in the past. So that's the thing, is that it doesn't necessarily have a particular gender to it. It is what it is.
Gotcha.
So what would be the evidence that
But
you would say, like, that it definitely does have consciousness that you are aware of enough to be able to say that that is something that you believe in? You know what I mean?
absolutely. And that's the one thing, is that we kind of like, and it kind of sucks to say because I wish that it was something else that I can be like, oh, but literally it is based on a personal experience. I cannot say anything other than that. But then after I started to do more research, because I despise when people say personal experience and then they leave it at that, because it could be just something, like a fragment of something inside my head, or underneath deep duress, all of a sudden I
Yeah.
have, this personal experience. But slowly but surely through and I still need to do more research on it. So I'm not saying I'm at the end of the rope and I know
Okay.
everything. I do not.
And
But
well,
That's
the
what
good.
thing
was
is
the? Would you mind
constantly,
sharing that specific personal experience that sort of like was like your clicking, your aha moment?
Oh, absolutely. It started with my because I was in a, I don't want to go into it too much, if you don't mind, but my situation was very dire at literally about a year and a half ago. I would say no, maybe a little less. I would say like mid-year. It was extremely dire, and I didn't know if things were going to pan out or not and everything. And I was stressing, and I had a little one on the way, and I had all these types of the issues monetarily, health wise, everything like that. It was just everything was breaking down on me and around me in a sense, or at least that's how it felt. And there was just one day where I was just sitting down and I was, you know, literally just thinking about kind of just ending it type of thing. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, I felt like this warmth on the back of my neck. And from that warmth, I felt this feeling of everything's going to be okay. I got you. And I was like, the fuck was that? But as soon as I heard that, like all those issues just kind of like dissipated. And I was like, okay, hold on, what is this? And I turned around, and it's gonna sound so cliche, but the way that the sun was bouncing off of the actual light, off the window, and it was just hitting me right on the back of the neck. And but it was just the weirdest thing because I didn't have that feeling until those rays hit my neck, and then that's when I felt that experience.
Okay. That's
And then
fair.
afterwards, the weirdest thing, like things started to actually start panning out. My health started to get better. The way that I was doing things was starting to become much more clear. I had literally my, as I stated, my health, my mental health got better, my living conditions got better, and everything like that. And ever since then, and it only feels when I go out in the sun, I feel that particular feeling that okay, I'm going to be okay, and
Well,
that's my experience.
no, I'm really glad that that brought you back from feeling such despair, because it's a really horrible feeling to be in that place. So first of all, I'm really glad that you're here, and I don't want to like discount your experience, but let me share my experience, okay? And like about 2 years ago, I had to come off some pain medications that I'd been on for like 8 years. I'd been on opiates, and when I come off of them, I had the same type of withdrawals that a junkie has, that someone who takes heroin has. All right, it was like I thought I was gonna die, and I had, I know we can't use this specific word, but like thoughts of ending my life. Right, I was at that point, and for days and days and days, and one day my mom is like really worried about me, listening to me cry on the phone and sitting in the dark, and she's like, just put on something on your audio, whatever, some listen to something that you enjoy. And I was like, I don't want to do that. So I started listening to the ACA shows, the atheist shows, and it wasn't doing anything, and I was just kept crying. And all of a sudden, I wasn't eating, obviously I wasn't sleeping, and I wasn't taking care of myself. My health was crap. I also had a lot of other health issues, and a Green Day song comes on, and something flipped, some kind of switch flipped in my head, in my brain, and my mood completely changed. Those self-harm thoughts gone. I got up, I made food, I drank some water, I took a shower, I felt great, I went for a walk. Like the energy I hadn't had for like a week or 2 weeks was back. So those are not supernatural experiences. Like Green Day is
Oh,
not
absolutely.
my it's not my god. They're not gods, you know. Well, they kind of
What?
are. I got a tattoo of them.
Billy
I got a tattoo to remind me of that.
Billy
But
Joe is, and maybe the drummer too. He's pretty great.
Hey, if you want to
Um,
worship Green Day, that's fine too. That's fine.
I kind of do in a way. Yeah, yeah. Everybody knows.
oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
but what I
No,
mean
and
is,
I completely agree with you. And that's why in the beginning I was like, okay, now this is just a placebo effect. That's all it
yeah.
is. This is just a placebo effect.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
going to
Yeah.
not delve into this. But then all of a sudden, like, and it's weird because and I hate to say it like this, but it's kind of like when birds migrate. Like it was just like the way that my my conscious well, I don't want to say my conscious experience, but my experience with the sun past that day and everything like that was different, and it felt different to me. It wasn't the same like any other day and everything like that. It wasn't just this one time off. It was this constantly whenever I was in the sun. I was like, I felt energized now. I felt ready to
But
take on the world. I felt
it's
like anybody. And
this.
but even that I took away from that, and I said that's a placebo effect. But then when I started to look at certain scientists and definitely physicists and their works when it came to consciousness towards a certain extent, and certain physicists stating that consciousness does not need to be quote unquote in a particular, like in an organic organism, right? It can be in, like, we're kind of looking at things through a linear scope when we're looking at consciousness. And then when I started to delve into, just like with the plasmoids, that's what they're called, plasmoids, and
Okay.
into the crystal, plasma dust, and how they amalgamate together, kind of like like a living organism in and of itself.
Okay.
It kind of
But
just
have you, as much as I respect physics, have you also looked as much in depth as at psychology and at brain science? Because I'm telling you, if you delve into brain science, it has a very good explanation. Look into what dopamine does to your brain and to your whole body. You're gonna feel a whole entire physical experience through dopamine. And what you said about every time you go in the sun, you still feel this experience. What my thing that I shared with you happened in 2024, so about July 2024, so about almost 2 years ago. I listened to
Well,
Green Day every single day since then. I'm not kidding you. I listen to them every single day. It's like an addiction for me, and it gives me that dopamine in the brain. And it's like, look, if that's what it took to replace the chemical drugs, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with having to listen to music to keep my sanity, sort of. But it's sort of a very similar experience to what you're sharing. Like it's a repeated action of what that takes you back to that moment where you
what?
originally felt that really strong experience, and you're gonna re-experience it every time.
Well, and you're also going to confirm your bias that you know what I mean?
exactly.
Like you're gonna, if you have that idea that something is what it is, and you've had that experience, then you're gonna look for evidence that that experience was genuine without even trying to. You can like, you don't even really mean to do it, and it's like it has such a higher impact. I think when we believe that stuff is real, it almost reminds me of like story, like what are they called, the stories that you tell that are like scary, but they're like supposedly
Oh,
real.
horror stories.
Not, well, not horror story. What are they called? There's like
Um,
a can't think of what it's called, but it's like there was a horror movie called it too.
mhm.
But it's just like these tales
Like
or whatever. But
Jeepers Creepers, maybe, or something.
no,
Oh,
it was
Tales
called
from
No.
the Crypt
uh,
Keeper.
they're just, dang, I just had it in my head too. They're just
Oh,
like legends,
Ninja
urban
Tales?
legends, urban legend. That's it.
Oh, urban legends. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, and what makes those scary, like if you tell those stories to somebody as far as them just being a narrative structure or whatever, people would be like, okay, whatever. That's kind of scary, I guess. But when you tell them and it's real, and you're like, yeah, the dog was like licking their hand, and then they went, and then it was the guy, the killer actually was the one thing licking his hand. Then it's scary because you're like, oh, that was real though. That really happened. That
Yeah.
makes it scary. It makes it more impactful, right? And
Yeah.
it's like,
Exactly.
you
I
know what I mean?
think what I'm trying to say is that
Exactly.
you don't necessarily have to think that the sun is conscious in order to feel that the sun saved your life, or that it continues to save your life every day and bring you happiness and bring you pleasure. You don't have to believe the pseudoscience in order to feel the same way about the sun that I do about Green Day.
It, understandable, and I see your position. I definitely see your position in that, in the way that you experience your experience and me experiencing mine, right? And that's why I am on a journey right now. It's not like
Okay.
I'm saying this is my concrete belief system and that's it. Like, obviously, I'm on a journey in order to see that, okay, this could possibly be just, a placebo effect, just like how you stated. And hey, say let it
Yeah.
be. After I'm like, all right, that was one hell of a ride. Okay, let's go and, you know,
Let's
figure out
go.
something else, or there's something to it.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. It's just that because there's a difference when people talk about, because there's a person that I looked up beforehand whose name was Rupert Sheldrake, and when I was speaking to a close friend of mine who is also within the atheist community and also not on this show, but he's associated with Skeptic Haven, and we spoke about it. He was like, "Oh yeah, well, Rupert Sheldrake is based on pseudoscience," and he's 100% correct. Rupert Sheldrake is based on pseudoscience, and that's the reason
Yeah.
why
He
I know what
I
you're talking about.
he literally
Okay.
came up when I looked up, "Is the sun conscious?"
Morphic.
It's like
Yeah.
Rupert Sheldrake, I think he's a
yeah, see, so
panpsychist, but
that's
yeah.
the whole entire thing. But for me or whatever, I don't look at Rupert Sheldrake's work because I understand that the way that he's experiencing it in and of itself is based on panpsychism and everything. That all the universe in and of itself is a thinking organism and everything, and I do not agree with that whatsoever.
Gotcha.
But the thing that I do see is just the way, because obviously with human beings and everything like that, the way that we interact with the sun on a daily basis is towards a certain extent kind of like how could I say it? I'm forgetting the word right now. I don't want to say traditional, but it's kind of like what the hell is it called again? When you're doing certain things
Sub
in like
subconscious?
what religious or what Christians do. They do not
Oh,
rituals.
ritualist? Oh, okay. No.
Oh,
No,
mutualistic or
no,
ritualistic? Like
there's
mutual?
another word for it, and I'm ah whatever.
Yeah, I think I got it.
I'll use ritual, even though ritual
Traditions.
is not the word that I'm
Traditional?
looking for, but it's not traditional, no.
No.
But it's kind of
Oh.
like we we
Like
work around.
mutual cooperation, maybe?
I'm sorry, pardon?
Oh, I was saying, did you mean like, are you talking about when two organisms sort of like work together to keep the other alive or something like that?
No, 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 nothing. Not like that. It's kind of like when it's before a ritual. You do certain things in repetition, but even repetition isn't the damn word. It's like you're
Habit?
doing ah. I
Habitual?
can't
No.
believe I'm
Habitual could be, yeah.
we're I'm going to use the word, but it's not the word that I'm looking for, but it's
Okay.
close to the word. It's like ritualistically. Like when the sun is out, everybody wants to go out. Everybody wants to interact. Everybody wants to kind of like enjoy nature and everything like that. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that people don't want to go out in the rain too, but the way that we interact with, nighttime or with the rain and everything like that is completely different compared to,
It depends on the person.
I live in Florida, and we do not like the sun. We,
I
in
live in
fact,
Texas, and I hibernate when the sun is out.
that's right.
well, that's what
That's
you
right.
see. There can be some outliers. I'm not saying I'm
Well,
Well,
not
I get what you're saying, but that's because
saying
we developed for that,
yeah,
right?
but that also has another explanation, and it's melatonin, because during the night you get a high dose of melatonin and you sleep, and then you're rested, and when the sun comes up, your body it gives a signal to your body to lower the melatonin levels, and so you're able to wake up, and also you get your coffee
Right.
and stuff, and so you're like, yeah.
yes.
Exactly.
You are completely correct based on that. But what I'm saying is that the ways, and it's also because of evolution too. I'm not saying that it's a mystical thing. Obviously, it's an evolutionary thing.
Oh,
But the thing is that it's tied to. We are very tied to the sun evolutionarily
right.
and everything. And there's this aspect where even now, certain, again, or scientists and neurologists even state that the sun has certain effects on the human brain when there's solar flares or when there's these particular type of things, because obviously our brains work in like these magnetic fields and stuff like that, which is sounds weird, but that's why we have the thing called the God helmet and everything like that, because it
Yeah.
messes up with the actual firing of neurons, and let alone the actual magnetic waves from those firing of neurons. So in and of itself, again, there's this intent, and again, as I stated, for me, it started with the personal experience. Now, my number one thing is that I would never state that you guys need to believe in it because I do. That is
Oh, yeah, no, I
not
agree.
what
I didn't feel like you were going that way. No, no, no. I
Yeah,
don't, not at all.
that's all
Yeah.
right. I just
right.
want to know if
But
stuff is true. Like,
I
how can we
don't
test for it?
Yeah, yeah.
pervert this path in a sense on my own to see where it leads. And if it leads down to the side, because that's the thing, I despise pseudoscience with an ultimate passion. So, but the thing is that when I'm looking at these physicists and everything like that, these individuals aren't creating, and I'm not talking about Rupert Sheldrake here. I'm talking about the individuals that are talking about crystalline plasma dust and everything like that. These particular things are actually concrete sciences and everything. So if we look at here, and this is a concrete science already, then it's and it shows that inorganic matter can come together in a way that is kind of the same exact way as organic matter, but then after it doesn't make sense, why the hell would it culminate together if it's not organic? Inorganic
Okay.
matter shouldn't work that way, but it does. So hence
Interesting.
it's only these dry plasma crystals. So that's the thing that is interesting to me. And that's why I was kind of like maybe and then after let alone the plasmoids, and then after protostars, and then the stars that we have. And after there's much more that is coming down the pipeline as well, talking about how influential the sun is on us and on the planet itself and everything like that.
But so
And
is
that's
oxygen, though. Oxygen has a very similar, like, we can live in the dark for a very long time, but we can't live without oxygen for very long. So it's like there are a lot of things that are super super important for our survival, and that are uh, further up on the list above the sun.
Well, that's the thing too, right? Like even with oxygen in and of itself and everything, like yes, it's based on carbon gases which get sucked up into trees and everything like that, and they release, our oxygen and everything. But at the same exact time too, we also get oxygen from photosynthesis in and of itself, right? Because if photosynthesis wasn't there, we wouldn't have trees, we wouldn't have plants or any of these
Oh, I see what you're
particular.
saying.
Yeah. So
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 okay.
that's
oh,
what I'm
yeah.
saying is that oxygen, yes, is important, but even that is created by the sun in and of itself.
Interesting. All right. So this is a really, really good call, and I would love to keep it going, but unfortunately, we do have another call that I would like Brently to take because this person wants to talk to Brently specifically. We've already had like almost 2 hours. So, but
Great.
but Arcon, I really appreciate all the information that you gave us. That was a really interesting conversation that I've actually never had before. So I appreciate that very much. And also, again,
And
I will
I
repeat
thank
it.
both of
Uh,
you.
I'm really glad you're still here and that you're able to talk to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. I would rather interact with atheists or naturalists or secular humanists any day of the week rather than people that just follow a book because it's supposedly holy. Like, so don't get me
Right.
wrong, and I want people to push against my ideas because
Cool,
they
cool.
may be incorrect, and if they are incorrect, then we got to fix them.
Awesome. Well, if
Exactly.
you if you want to learn more about brainy stuff, like how different things, not the sound, but like music, whatever affects your brain, I have a lot of stuff on my own channel, which is called Ways to Human. It's like right up here on the over my head on the name title. It's not this channel, Skeptic Haven. It's a different channel. So you can find it over there if you will like, be interested in all that stuff. Uh, but thank you so much for the call, and
Yeah.
I
Thank
will.
you. May the sun guide you. Have a great.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
May
Take
the
it easy,
sun
man.
keep you warm. All
That's right.
right.
Stay warm.